My name was Ahmed. I was a judge, a keeper of the law in a world steeped in strict tradition and pervasive fear. I wore my title with pride, wielding its power as both shield and sword against dissent. But beneath my imposing demeanor, a shadow loomed, an unshakable emptiness. Each ruling I made echoed through me, a hollow reminder of the faith I professed but struggled to uphold. Then came the crash, an accident that sent me spiraling into darkness. In those fleeting moments between life and death, an extraordinary meeting unfolded. It was here, amid a celestial courtroom, that Jesus called my name. Time ceased to exist. I was enveloped in a light so pure it shattered the chains of my reasoning. In the silence, I was shown a profound truth, a deception woven into the fabric of my faith, a manipulation that echoed through generations. When I awoke, the world felt infinitely heavier. I summoned the courage to speak of my encounter, but my voice trembled in fear, labeled as a heretic by those I once revered. I was met with hostility, my reality reduced to whispers of madness. The truth became both my burden and my beacon, a call to action against the very system I once served. In secret, I began a quest for understanding, peeling back layers of dogma to discover a community that embraced the same light. Each revelation brought me closer to an unspeakable destiny, igniting a fire within that could no longer be contained. I was on a path that led away from condemnation toward hope, the hope of redemption. As I recount this journey today, I urge you to consider your own path. The truths you hold, the systems you serve, can they be challenged? Are you willing to risk everything for a revelation? So, before we dive deeper into this extraordinary tale, I invite you to share where you're watching from and the time there. Let's connect across these distances. And if you resonate with the message of Jesus, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. You won't want to miss the truths that lie ahead, waiting to be uncovered. I remember that day as if it were etched in my very soul, the air thick with an oppressive silence. The streets of our conservative town in Egypt were divided, Muslims on one side, Christians on the other, each fearful of what the next moment could bring. My life before this turmoil was simple. I was a carpenter, crafting homes and dreams out of wood, trying to provide for my family. But that day, my life took a turn I could never have anticipated. Sudden collapse of scaffolding left me buried, the world fading to darkness in an instant. In the space between this life and the next, I encountered an undeniable light. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, I heard a voice reassuring yet powerful, resonating deep within me. "You're not alone," it said. And I realized it was Jesus. In that moment of profound peace, he showed me scenes of the world, flashing images of conflict, the keen edge of deception, the hidden agenda of those in power, and the awakening of humanity to truth. I was swept into a spiritual war I didn't even know I was fighting. With every revelation, I began to see the shadows creeping into our communities, the influence of the elite, the manipulation that twisted our perception of reality. I witnessed how fear was used as a tool to govern, to divide us further, breeding mistrust between neighbors. Jesus spoke of the need for discernment, urging me to awaken to the lies suffocating our spirit, lies that played out on national television disguised as news, disguised as truth. I felt a calling, an urgency to return and share this critical message. There was no time to waste. The world needed to prepare for what lay ahead. Then, he cast his gaze upon me, and in that moment, I understood. The superficial divisions, Muslim and Christian, were nothing more than a facade, a distraction from the greater spiritual battle at play. "Awaken," he urged, "for your brothers and sisters are scattered, blinded by the enemy's deceit." I could see our leaders, their faces stricken with greed, their policies steeped in agendas that perpetuated wars and suffering. Justice had been perverted, and we, the common people, were left to bear the weight of the world's corruption. Just as rapidly as it began, the encounter shifted. I found myself torn away, drawn back to the world of flesh and bone, the echo of his words resonating endlessly in my heart. I awoke amidst the chaos of my unfinished life, gasping for air, my heart pounding like a war drum. The revelation was clear, and yet I knew there was more to uncover. I had been given a chance to change the course of my fate, and those around me could either rise or remain shackled in the slavery of ignorance. I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out, that now, more than ever, the truth needed to be spoken, even in a society so entrenched in fear. Little did I realize how intensely the battle for our souls would unfold just outside our doors. I always thought I had everything figured out. At 35, I was a respected judge in our conservative community, an Islamic authority wielding power and influence. I wore my robes with pride, upholding laws that were designed to protect our way of life. But beneath that imposing exterior, there was a nagging emptiness, a hollow yearning for something deeper. My days were filled with legal debates and stern judgments, yet I felt trapped in a cage of my own making, yearning for spiritual freedom that seemed just out of reach. One fateful evening, a tragic car accident changed everything. As I lay there, blood seeping from my wounds, I felt an overwhelming pull away from my body, a darkness enveloping me. But within it, there was undeniable light: Jesus. I hadn't believed in him in the way Christians do, but there he was, illuminating my fractured reality with his presence. Instantly, I felt a deep connection, as if every barrier I had built to keep him out was crumbling. Your life has been lived under a hidden agenda, he spoke, his voice gentle yet commanding. It's time to confront the deception that has clouded your heart. In that moment, I was shown a series of visions that revealed the true nature of the world around me. I witnessed the puppet strings held by the elite, manipulating the minds of the masses, instigating wars fueled by power and greed. The very divisions I had upheld, the separation of faiths that kept us at odds, were shrouded in a fabric woven by fear and ignorance. Jesus urged me to awaken to the truth that lies beneath these facades, to see my role not as a judge enforcing societal norms, but as a shepherd calling others to a higher understanding. The urgency in his voice reverberated through me as scenes of suffering flashed before my eyes. Children displaced by war, families torn apart by hatred, communities struggling for survival amidst a spiritual void. I saw how technology, which I once believed was a gift, had become a tool for oppression, further deepening our spiritual war. Jesus implored me to be a vessel of change, to stop viewing the world through the lens of division, and instead teach others about the unity found in seeking the truth of our shared humanity. Suddenly, I was jolted back to my lifeless form as paramedics rushed in. The harshness of reality struck me like thunder, yet the warmth of Jesus' light lingered, urging me to act. I woke up, not fully understanding the path ahead, but I felt the weight of his message pressing upon my heart. The world was in desperate need of awakening, and my life had been spared for a purpose I hadn't yet grasped. What would I do with this revelation? The answer was waiting just beyond the shadows, wrapped in the next steps I must take to reveal the truth to those around me. Every day, as I donned my robes and sat at the bench, a weight pressed on my chest that was hard to ignore. I listened to the prayers of those before me, their voices filled with hope and desperation. Yet I felt an unsettling void within myself. I was Ahmed, a judge respected for my wisdom. But the deeper I delved into the lives of those brought before me, the more I questioned the very nature of justice itself. A nagging doubt crept into my heart, the kind that whispers late at night, igniting a spiritual war within me. Was I truly serving God, or merely a hidden agenda that kept us shackled in fear? It all escalated one night when I had a dream so vivid it felt like a premonition. In this dream, I saw compassionate figures surrounding a wounded child, their words laced with love and mercy, a stark contrast to the harsh judgments I delivered each day. I woke up in a cold sweat, filled with an urgency I'd never known. Who were these figures? Why did they haunt my dreams? It was as if they were beckoning me to seek the truth beyond the rigid lines I had drawn in my life, a truth that could unlock my soul and set me free. Then came the event that changed everything. A case had built up in my court, one that seemed like a routine summation of justice. A group of Christians accused of blasphemy. As I prepared to deliver my judgment, I felt heavy hands gripping my heart. In that moment, I could almost sense the presence of another being, a palpable energy filling the room. My mind flashed to Jesus, not as an icon, but as a living truth I'd long suppressed. "What would you do?" came a whisper, louder than any gavel I had ever struck. "Would you choose the path of righteousness or surrender to the chains of societal expectations?" The weight became unbearable. I found myself transported into a vast expanse of light, surrounded by the echoes of countless souls crying out for justice. And there, in the brilliance of it all, Jesus stood before me, his eyes piercing through the veil of deception I had been living under. "The elite thrive on division," he revealed, "fueling wars and conflict to maintain control. They've woven a narrative designed to keep you blind." With each word he spoke, another layer of my understanding peeled away, unveiling the manipulation that fed not only my community, but the entire world. As I returned to my body, gasping for breath, the enormity of what I had experienced seeped into my bones. I sat up, feeling as though I had come face to face with both my past and my future. The revelations from that divine encounter compelled me to reevaluate everything: the politics, the social divides, the very essence of my faith. I felt an awakening, a duty to share what I had seen, the truth of our existence, the illumination that lies in forgiving one another despite our differences. Yet, the fear of the elite resonated in my mind, warning me that seeking this truth comes with a price. Perhaps they wouldn't allow it to go unchallenged. What awaited me now on this path? Would I have the courage to act on these revelations when the weight of the world lay heavy on my shoulders? The day of the accident started like any other, my routine woven into the fabric of my life as a judge. I had dedicated years to serving justice, yet as I drove through the bustling streets, I felt a shadow looming within, a growing doubt about the morality of the decisions I had been taking. Was I merely a pawn, upholding the laws of a system riddled with deception? It wasn't long before my thoughts were violently interrupted. A truck barreled into my lane, and in an instant, everything turned dark. I woke to silence, an eerie stillness that enveloped me. My body felt both heavy and weightless, and I couldn't comprehend where I was. Then it began. A tribunal unfolded before me in a realm suspended between light and shadow. Figures appeared, some familiar, others unknown, and among them emerged Jesus, his presence radiating warmth and clarity. "Ahmed," he called my name, each syllable resonating like a bell cutting through the void. The moment I heard him, I felt the spiritual war within me dissolve. He placed his hand upon my heart, and in that instant, a flood of revelation coursed through me. I saw the hidden agenda driving the world, how divisions were created and nurtured to maintain control by the elite. I witnessed scenes of suffering, not just from my community but across the globe, illuminated by the truth of manipulation that had infected every facet of society. Jesus turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "You must awaken to the truth that your faith has sometimes been weaponized against the very people it should heal." As we traversed this ethereal space, I felt the weight of the judgments I had rendered in my courtroom. how my decisions may have echoed the very divide that fueled conflict and strife. Justice must be rooted in compassion, Jesus said, not merely the cold application of rules. The deception lies in the belief that one is superior to another. His voice was not accusatory, but filled with a deep, compassionate urgency, urging me to realize the role I had played in furthering this cycle. Every revelation stung with clarity, propelling me deeper into this spiritual awakening. I saw the fragile threads connecting humanity, frayed by fear and prejudice, yet strong enough to weave a new tapestry of understanding, if only we dared to reach across the chasms we had created. "You're being called to lead others out of darkness," he implored, "to be a voice of unity in a time of division." But just as quickly as my understanding expanded, the vision began to fade and panic set in. I didn't want to leave this moment. It was filled with purpose, clarity, the kind of truth that could change everything. Suddenly I felt a jolt, as if being pulled back into my body against my will. The sterile scent of the hospital filled my nose, and the sounds of machinery surrounded me like a cacophony. I opened my eyes, my heart racing, every bit of the vision seared into my memory. Yet I felt utterly alone as my reality pressed in. How could I convey this truth? How could I challenge the system and the spiritual war that dictated our lives? As I lay there, grappling with the enormity of my revelations, I understood that I was meant to rise against the tide of deception. The journey ahead was daunting, but there was no turning back now. When I finally opened my eyes, the sterile hospital lights flooded my vision, and my heart raced with the vivid memories of my encounter. I had been reborn in a way I couldn't fully comprehend. But the moment I attempted to share what had transpired, the warmth of my revelations met nothing but frigid hostility. Friends, family, they looked at me as though I had become a stranger, casting quick glances laden with skepticism. "You've become a heretic," they said, their voices trembling with betrayal. I had stepped into a spiritual war, not only within myself, but now against those who had once embraced me. It was almost unbearable. I could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on me like an anchor. They accused me of blasphemy for speaking of Jesus and his teachings, for revealing the hidden agendas that lay beneath our traditions. I thought my testimony would ignite a spark of awakening, but instead, it fueled the fire of their deception. The more I spoke, the more isolated I became, a pariah in the very community I had dedicated my life to serving. It was a profound irony that in seeking truth, I was deemed the enemy. As days turned into weeks, the emotional toll mounted. I endured countless whispers and direct confrontations. "You were once a respected judge," they shouted. "Are you now turning your back on what we hold sacred?" The fabric of my faith, once so tightly woven, was fraying, unraveling beneath the pressure of their disdain. I couldn't grasp how they could reject the very light I had encountered. A light meant to unite, to heal. I felt what Jesus must have felt. Rejection not only from the world, but from those closest to me. A betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound. Physical attacks followed soon after. A group of men from my community decided they could silence me through intimidation. I was confronted one evening as I left the marketplace, surrounded by their defiance. "You dare speak against our way of life?" one of them spat as others stepped forward. It was in this moment of danger that I felt a strange calm wash over me. I remembered Jesus, his teachings on love, and the strength found in vulnerability. I refused to back down, sensing that even in this confrontation, something greater was at play, a chance to expose the deception that fueled their anger. Every encounter became a crucible testing my faith, a chance to reveal the truth of my awakening. I began to understand more profoundly that this was not just about me. It was a call to action for those caught in the web of the elite's manipulation. As I spoke, I tried to show them how the elite thrived on our division, how they fed off our anger and fear. In the I-Chi depths of my struggles, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. What if my pain could lead others to their own moments of revelation? The journey was just beginning, yet it felt incredibly dangerous, drawing a new line in a war that stretched far beyond what I could see. The question remained, would anyone dare to take this journey with me, or would I stand alone amid the chaos? In the days that followed my awakening, I found myself at a crossroads, grappling with the revelations that had shaken the very foundation of my existence. Secretly, I began a journey of self-discovery that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Late at night, when the world outside was quiet, I would lock the door to my home and immerse myself in videos that explored Christianity, trying to understand the teachings of Jesus, the very essence of compassion and love that had been foreign to me just weeks before. Each video felt like a thread unraveling the deception I had lived within, showing me the light that pushed back against the dark shadows of my previous beliefs. The Bible became my companion during those lonely hours. I read stories of redemption, love, and sacrifice, each page igniting a fire deep within me. Yet with each passage I devoured, the weight of fear pressed heavily on my shoulders. I feared exposure. What would my community think, my friends, those who once respected me? The very people who had labeled me a heretic for daring to speak the truth I had uncovered would surely not tolerate this new interest in a faith they shunned. I struggled with the duality of my identity. One part of me longed for the truth, and the other shrank back in fear of rejection. Still, I found solace in online communities where others shared similar challenges. We were all seekers united by our struggles, breaking free from the chains of societal expectations imposed by the elite. There was an undeniable camaraderie that formed as we exchanged stories, fears, and aspirations. I realized I wasn't alone in this spiritual war. Many of us had faced judgment for our beliefs, dismissed as radicals for merely wanting to explore the depths of our souls. Through these interactions, I began to understand more about the hidden agenda at play, how many were manipulated into silence, kept away from the truth by a system designed to maintain control over our minds and hearts. As I delved deeper into this exploration, my connection with Jesus grew more profound. His teachings revealed layers of understanding about love, forgiveness, and the necessity of standing against injustices that fester in our society. I became acutely aware of the elite's manipulation, how they capitalized on fear, division, and ignorance to maintain their power. Each revelation felt like a call to arms, a plea to awaken, and to not just accept the world as it was, but to strive for a reality rooted in truth and compassion, a world where we could bridge divides instead of deepening them. But the fear of being discovered loomed ominously over me. I knew that if my explorations were uncovered, the consequences could be dire. The thought of facing hostility again, not just from my community, but from my own family, kept me awake at night. Here I was, standing on the edge of a spiritual awakening, ready to embrace a truth that could shatter the chains of deception, yet terrified of the backlash that could ensue. Standing at this precipice forced me to confront the ultimate question: how far was I willing to go to pursue the truth? As I wrestled with this decision, the echoes of a larger call reverberated in my heart, and I felt an urgency brewing within, a need to act while I still could. What lay ahead felt uncertain, but one thing was clear: the path I was on would change everything. The moment Jesus spoke my name, everything shifted within me, igniting a fire of purpose that I could no longer ignore. I recalled the deep sense of darkness that had shrouded my heart before that encounter. It was as if the very fabric of my being was a tapestry woven with threads of confusion and fear. Now, standing on the precipice of a revelation, I felt compelled to break my silence, to share the truths I had learned. The stakes were high and the risks daunting, but my spirit could no longer bear the burden of inaction. I had glimpsed the deeper layers of reality, layers that exposed the hidden agendas of the elite, their relentless manipulation of our society and belief systems. I understood that the spiritual war I was now engaged in extended far beyond my own struggles. It was about awakening the hearts of those around me, urging them to see through the veil of deception that had kept us divided and powerless for so long. Each day, I felt that nudging in my heart, an urgency to speak up about what I had witnessed. It was a calling, a responsibility, and I could not turn away from it. Yet, the thought of confronting my community filled me with dread. I had witnessed the hostility directed at those who dared to question the status quo. I had seen lives destroyed by the backlash of speaking out against our deeply ingrained beliefs. As I began to share my experiences with select individuals, I was surprised to find a few kindred spirits among my acquaintances, others who had privately questioned the teachings of our community, who felt the same spiritual unrest within their hearts. Together, we formed a small group, meeting in the shadows, exchanging ideas, and seeking understanding. Each new conversation was like a spark, igniting the truth further within me. We spoke about how the elite exploited wars and division as tools of control, perpetuating a cycle of suffering to maintain their grip on power. It became abundantly clear that our awakening was more than a personal journey. It was a collective struggle against the forces that sought to keep us silent. As I shared the revelations from my near-death experience, I could see the conflict rising within those listening. Some felt an immediate connection, their eyes lighting up with understanding, while others recoiled in fear. What will happen if we embrace this truth? One of my friends questioned, his voice trembling. I knew the risks, and still felt the cold grip of dread. The very act of awakening could cost us everything: relationships, respect, and perhaps even our safety. Yet, in that moment, I also realized that living in fear of the truth felt far worse than the potential fallout of seeking it. I chose to embrace the discomfort, the uncertainty, and the necessity of stepping into the light. As the days turned into weeks, my sense of urgency grew. I began to craft messages that I would eventually share more broadly. Warnings about the dangers of manipulative forces that seek to exploit societal divisions and the importance of uniting under the banner of truth. Yet, deep inside, I battled with a nagging voice that tried to convince me to retreat back into the shadows. The elite would seek to silence us. They would attempt to crush the flame of awakening before it could spread. Each passing moment solidified my resolve, and I knew that if I didn't act soon, the opportunity to challenge the narrative we'd been fed would slip away, leaving many in the dark forever. Through this tumultuous journey, I found myself constantly confronting the question, what price am I willing to pay for the truth? Each interaction was a delicate balance between hope and despair, as I poured out my heart to those willing to listen. It became apparent that our awakening was not just personal. It was a ripple effect that could challenge the very foundations of our society. But as I prepared to take my message to a wider audience, the fear of exposure crept back in. Would I have the strength to face the backlash? Would I stand alone against the tide of deception? One thing I knew for certain: the path before me was fraught with risks, but the call to awaken was too strong to ignore. The battle had only just begun. I could feel the weight of the decision pressing heavily on my chest as I trudged through the streets of my town one last time. The faces of those who once called me friend now felt like distant memories, ghosts haunting the corners of my mind. My heart was filled with a mix of sorrow and newfound clarity. Ever since that pivotal moment when Jesus had spoken to me, I knew I could no longer safely inhabit a place that rejected the truth I had come to embrace. The path I had chosen separated me from the identity they had crafted for me, and the fear of what lay ahead gnawed at my resolve. But that fear was small compared to my commitment to share the hope and truth I had discovered. I found myself in the shadow of the desert, the vastness of the landscape reflecting the emptiness I once felt within. This was not just a retreat from my past. It was a pilgrimage of awakening that I felt compelled to undertake. I adopted a new name, shedding my old identity like the skin of a snake, allowing myself to be reborn in a way that aligned with my mission. I believed wholeheartedly that I had been given a purpose beyond the confines of my previous life, that I had a role to play in combating the spiritual war raging not just in my hometown but across the world. The thought of evangelizing, of helping others uncover the truth hidden beneath layers of deception, set my spirit alight. As I walked into the heart of the desert, the silence enveloped me, contrasted by the raging tempest within. I reflected on the revelation I had received about the elite, manipulating not just the political landscape of nations but the very fabric of our beliefs. The unseen hands pulling strings from their ivory towers perpetuated wars, incited division, all while maintaining a facade of control. I felt the throbbing urgency to expose these hidden agendas, to awaken others before it was too late. Each step was a commitment, a promise to carry the light of truth to those still trapped in the shadows. Days turned into weeks as I journeyed through the sands, encountering nomads who had also left their communities in search of something more. We exchanged stories of our struggles, each tale a thread weaving into a larger tapestry of shared discomfort, hope, and awakening. My heart swelled at the thought that I wasn't alone in this mission. Together, we ignited conversations about the shared human experience, the faceless elite that sought to divide us, and the power we held when united in our quest for the truth. I came to realize that our hardships were not just personal, but reflective of a greater battle playing out across the globe. With every passing moment, the sense of purpose blossomed within me. I felt a deep calling to not just speak about Jesus, but to embody his teachings in actions that resonated with compassion and love. If I was to share the truth, it had to be more than words. It had to manifest in the way I lived and interacted with those around me. I committed to being a beacon in the desert, guiding those who had lost their way back to the light of hope. Yet, as excitement surged, so did the chilling reminder of the risks involved. Would I be punished for daring to challenge the deception that had so long been woven into the fabric of our lives? Would the powerful elite who benefited from our ignorance seek to silence my voice as they had done so many times before? The path I was forging was fraught with uncertainty, but I knew I had to press on. Each confrontation with fear became an opportunity for growth, each doubt an invitation to trust in the unfolding of my purpose. I envisioned the faces of those who needed awakening, those who still lived in the darkness, suffering without understanding the forces at play in their lives. I realized this journey was about much more than my own transformation. It was a mission to bring the truth into the open, to hold the light of Jesus above the hidden agenda of chaos and deception. As the sun began to set over the desert, casting a warm glow around me, my spirit soared. I felt that change was not only possible, it was imminent, and I was ready to embrace it, whatever that meant. As I stand here today, reflecting on this extraordinary journey, I must ask you, what role do you believe you play in this unfolding spiritual war? Have you felt the stirring within your heart, the call to awaken to a truth that transcends the divisions we've been taught to accept? There's a profound awakening happening, a momentum built upon the courage of those willing to face the darkness and step boldly into the light, and you are an essential part of this tapestry. We are linked together by our shared experiences and struggles, each thread woven through the fabric of humanity, yearning for understanding, compassion, and unity. The stories we hold are powerful. They can shatter the chains of misinformation and illuminate the path for others still lost in shadows. Imagine what could happen if we all began to share our truths openly and fearlessly. Together we can challenge the narratives dictated by the elite, who thrive on chaos and division. So now, I invite you to share your thoughts, your experiences, your fears, your hopes, in the comments below. This is a space for connection, a community ready to listen and uplift one another. Your voice matters, your story matters. Are you willing to take the leap of faith and express that truth? And if this journey resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. Each video we share peels back more layers of deception, uncovering the realities we need to face together. What awaits in our next installment is another eye-opening testimony that might just change your perspective forever. Thank you for joining me on this path of awakening. I'm Ahmed, and as we navigate these complex truths together, remember, the light will always find a way through the darkness. Let it guide you, let it inspire you, and above all, let it unify us, for there's strength in our shared pursuit of the ultimate truth. Until next time, stay vigilant and ready to awaken.